Okay, good morning, everybody. I am Ginny Davis. I'm the principal at Piedmont Hills. I really appreciate all of you joining us today as we get started in this school year. This is our first of the Zooms with the principals that we're gonna do every Thursday at 9 a.m. Normally, in previous years, we've done it on Wednesday mornings, but with that being now our collaboration time with the staff, that's not going to work out. So we shifted it to Thursdays. And so, like always, we'll have a different topic every week. And, hopefully you as parents find this time useful. What we wanted to do today is just really have the administrators introduce ourselves to you guys so that you know a little bit about us and our background and where we're coming from. I really just want to start off though first today saying thank you for all of you joining us. I know that this is a really stressful time. There's a lot going on, and especially right now, currently this minute, there's evacuations in part of our attendance area, and I know that that's really, really stressful for a lot of people, and I just really appreciate you guys being here and sharing this time with us. So let me start by introducing myself and telling you a little bit about myself, and then I'll let Nancy and Andrew have a minute or two. Like I said, I'm Ginny Davis. I am the principal. This is my third year being the principal at Piedmont Hills. And before coming to and becoming the principal at Piedmont Hills, I was an associate principal at 2 other high schools in the district. I did the curriculum and counseling side, which Nancy does here. I did that at Santa Teresa for 4 years. And before that, I did the job that Andrew has here. I did the discipline and attendance for Independence High School for 3 years. Prior to that, however, I was a teacher at Piedmont Hills. I was a social science teacher here. I taught AVID here. I loved my time teaching here. It was such a great place, and I was so excited 3 years ago to get that call to become the principal of Piedmont Hills. It was just such a great honor, and I'm so excited to be here. This is such a great school, and I just love being the principal here. It's really, really great. A little bit about my, personal, I have 2 kids. I have a daughter who just started her senior year in high school. And I have a son who today, right now, my husband is at home with him, and he is getting on his Zoom for his very first day of middle school. So I have an 11-year-old and a 17-year-old, and they take a lot of my time. They're mostly great, but just so you guys know, a lot of times in these this year it's the Zooms with the principal, I talk a lot about my kids and share. I tend to be pretty frank about the struggles I have as a parent of a teenager, soon to be 2 teenagers, because I guess now I got one that's in that tween zone. So I tend to be really open about what's going on and what I'm struggling with. And so my hope with these weekly times with parents is that I gotta stop myself from calling them coffees, because I'm not serving you guys coffee anymore. Is that we really can create a parent community where we share the struggles that we have and help each other come up with solutions, and really have to me, it's that sense of community and having that tight-knit group that we are all in this together, especially in a year like this, which is obviously going to be a difficult year and unlike any one that we've ever experienced before. But I think that we working together as this community, we can absolutely get through it. Okay, so that's me and my background. I am going to let Nancy go now.
Good morning. I'm Nancy PEREIRA. I'm the Associate Principal of Educational Services. So that's a very fancy title that basically says curriculum. And, I work a lot with the, scheduling, the counselors, testing, the special ed piece. And I guess all 3 of us work on that side too as well. But So that's probably in the capacity that you've most seen me. This is my 5th year at Piedmont Hills. I started actually as the APA here, and I came from a different district. I worked at San Jose Unified for 18 years, where I spent half of my time doing curriculum with being a coordinator of their International Baccalaureate program. And I did that for about 10 years while it was kind of a shared job where I would do teaching the other half of the day. So I taught history and Spanish for the bulk of my time. And, in that I worked a lot with the English language learners and special ed students and honor students. So it's quite a mixed bag. I'm actually going to shut my door. There's people outside. Hold on. Sorry. Super awkward. I was like, there's like a concert outside my office right now here at work. But anyway, sorry about that. So yeah, I was really fortunate to make a move from San Jose Unified to East Side. I grew up in East San Jose. I don't live very far from the school, so I was super excited to come to Piedmont Hills. It was kind of a surprise. I was like, oh yeah, I'll go to Piedmont, no problem. And it's been great. I enjoy the community. And, I love working with students and really helping them persevere and kind of, get them anchored and following their goals. A lot of times students are kind of all over the place with what they think and just, or they might sell themselves short sometimes. So I think just having really good conversations with students and kind of like helping guide them is really what I love to do. And I think that's about it before any more rock concerts happen. It's a pleasure being here with you today. Like I said, I live nearby, so like my cell phone keeps chirping, so it's making me a little nervous because the evacuations are happening like literally a block away from me. So I'm like, it's a little kind of crazy. So, but I think we're all okay. And so anyway, thank you for being here today.
Great. And then Andrew Campbell is our APA. So Andrew, you want to introduce yourself?
Hey, good morning, everybody. I am the Assistant Principal of Administration. That means that I do what I like to put it under safety. So that means I do discipline issues, attendance issues, registration, the facilities, all of those things around the school that's trying to make the school safe. We just finished our fire inspection yesterday. Yay, good timing. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. I guess I'm a bit more of the traveler, three of us. I've worked in all 3 major high school districts here in the city. I actually started teaching in Campbell Unified High School District nearly 20 years ago. Did a few years there. Actually moved to New Jersey and saw some of the stuff that was going on in the New Jersey schools. Came back and ended up in San Jose Unified, teaching at Willow Glen for 11 years. And then recently switched over to administration and found that I had an opportunity here in the East Side for that kind of role. I worked at Independence for a year, and now this will be my 2nd year at Piedmont Hills. And I'm going to say the same thing everyone else is saying. I love Piedmont Hills. It's been a great school. It's been a great experience. I'm also going through the same thing all of you are going through. As Ginny said, she's got a daughter who's a senior in high school. I have a senior in high school. I have a freshman in high school, and now I have a 2nd grader. And we're all literally on Zoom meetings right now in our house together. 5 of us working together on the same internet. So if mine cuts out, that's what's happening here at my household. We got 5 people who are trying to do school and work at the same time. So yeah, welcome. Thank you all for coming in, and thank you for having us.
Yeah, and I should have, and when we started, told all of you that if you have questions, to go ahead and put them in the chat. So if you guys want to start doing that, putting any questions that you have in the chat, and then we can certainly will address them. I can tell you that, I like starting distance learning and starting the school year last week. Monday night, I don't think I slept more than like 10 minutes. So anxious and stressed about, the start of the school year and, oh my gosh, is this actually going to work? Are kids going to be able to get onto classes? What's going to happen? And then, I'm hoping from, we're you were sitting and from your perspective, it went pretty well. Because from where we had a couple of hiccups, but overall, it seemed like, the school year started pretty well. Definitely, I feel like last week we were like, oh, we're good. This week, it just seems like we're a little bit more like, oh, okay, this is where, we're, getting some issues, and, kids still struggling to figure out how to get on. But hopefully, like, we'll work out the kinks. There's some classes that obviously are going to be easier to do in distance learning than others. And so we're working with those teachers and like, what do they need? And like, how are we going to be able to do this? Because our goal is, obviously we're not going to be able to completely mimic like regular school and in-person learning. Obviously it's going to be different, but our goal is to make it as similar as we possibly can. So doing things like this week, ASB is having a spirit week, and just doing things like that so that we still have that school connection and community amongst the students. I think that's especially for those of you that are parents of incoming freshmen. I think that is super important. And so that, I just want to kind of reassure you guys that, as much as possible, that is our goal and what we're going to try to do. Please be patient with us, as sometimes things may take a little bit longer for us to figure out, exactly how to do some things, but we're figuring it out. So we did get a question about the PSAT in October. Nancy, do you want to take that? That's your area.
Sure. Officially, I have not heard anything. However, my guess is that we're not going to do it, given the situation with school shutdown, and I don't think there's a way for us to facilitate a test that could hold on to the integrity of the test. So I think right now the answer is it will not happen this year. I'm sure if College Board figures out a way to do that, that we would probably be on board with them as well. So but so right now the answer is, to my knowledge, we will not be doing those tests.
I think that's probably the delay too, is waiting for College Board to see if they're going to come up and have a version that students could do on their own at home. And, is that going to be a possibility? Certainly, like normal, like, where we have a different schedule and we, have kids at school taking the test, that is not happening in October. There is no way that we're prepared to bring, it's the sophomores, like the entire sophomore class onto campus to do that. And well, under the rules right now, we're just not even allowed to. And I can't imagine that in October, because, as you guys realize, since March, it seems like forever ago, but it actually goes pretty fast. And so October will be here before we know it. And so, as soon as
join the meeting.
As soon as we get information from the College Board about what's going to be available, we will share that out. But, for right now, not plan that we're having a October PSAT like normal. So definitely.
AP tests.
So Nancy, you got another question.
Yeah.
Your area.
So I love it.
We're going to register for AP tests through the school, pay at the school bank like before.
Yeah, we will. It'll be the same process as before. Right now, we haven't set up an online paying system. I'm hoping to have that set up. But yeah, the students will have to register for the AP tests, and they would have to pay for them, and that all happens pretty much through October. I'll start at late September, but the registration would have to be done in that time frame. I think AP's deadline is like early November. So yeah, and AP, obviously last year College Board figured out how to do the AP tests a little differently. So I anticipate that's probably how they're going to handle it as well if things continue as they were this past school year.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate with that, like currently we don't have an online payment system set up, but our finance clerk actually retired over the summer. We have a new finance clerk, and that's actually one of our goals and like shifting to a new person, that we're going to get something like that up and running. So hopefully that happens in the next several weeks, and because that would be convenient, I know, to you guys as parents. One complaint that we always got with our school bank is that it was only cash or check, and we're in the middle of the Silicon Valley, and isn't that weird? And I totally agree. So we are, you know, working on becoming a little bit more advanced. Andrew, why don't you want to talk about attendance a little bit during distance learning?
Yeah, sure. So we're asking our teachers to both be really adamant about taking attendance and also kind of fluid about what they're accepting as attendance. For the most part, what we're doing is trying to make sure that our students are participating and aware of the classes that are happening and everything. So the first side is we're asking our teachers to, just like any other school year, take attendance every period, record that the same way as possible. You may be getting phone calls home if students are reported as absent. We're still having our same roto calls and everything that will come out at the end of the day. But in addition to that, we're asking our teachers to be a little bit more flexible about what they're saying is attendance. We're not recording students that come in tardy. We're just saying that they showed up. So they have an hour and a half long class period Zoom. If a student shows up during that time, then we're going to include that as being present. We're not, even if they're a little late, we're still going to consider them as being present. In addition, we're asking our teachers to be understanding of technological issues and other problems that may be coming up as we transition to this new school style. So we're telling them, hey, if a student emails you and says, I can't make it, if a parent emails and says that they're having problems with their internet, things like that, we're asking them to still consider the student present, because they're still reaching out, they're still being connected with the teacher, and hopefully still being able to participate in the class, at least in terms of work that comes out or things of that nature. So on your side, if you know that your students are having difficulties getting in, maybe there's a problem with the Zoom link, we've had a number of those. Maybe there's a problem with them signing into their EC Arms account. Maybe you're having internet issues. If you're evacuating, right, shoot an email to the teachers, let them know what the issue is, and then they should be understanding and accommodating for that.
Yeah, I want to reiterate, like, you know, we're telling the teachers to be flexible and understanding, and they, you know, absolutely are and have no problems with that. I mean, we have teachers that live in this area and they're having to evacuate also. You know, with our flexibility with this, I mean, I think I'm going to ask parents to be our partners, that, you know, the basis and the reason for our flexibility is that we understand that, you know, internet can go out. You could have very solid internet at your house. I have really great internet, and then it will just randomly go out. And then, you know, the kid can't get on, and, you know, that sort of thing. Over the summer, we were doing Zooms to hire teachers, and we were doing French interviews, and my internet just went out. Luckily, Nancy and Andrew were able to continue on because I was out, you know. And so these things happen, and that's, you know, we're very understanding of that. So that's why we are being flexible of what counts as attendance. Do us a favor though, don't, like, we're wanting the kids to, because what we're telling the kids is, you know, you have to show up for the Zooms, and like that's what's important, because we do want to make sure that the students are, you know, maintaining that level of engagement. And so this kind of leads into a question that popped up in the chat. How is distance learning going to be different from last semester, and any new guidance to the teachers? So yes, it is different. You know, last semester we were I wouldn't even call it distance learning. I think one phrase I've been hearing in the education community a lot is that we were crisis learning. You know, like we shut down so suddenly, and like we were just kind of like, oh God, what do we do? And figuring it out as we go. We've learned, you know, as an education community, we've learned from the mistakes that happened in the spring and what worked and what didn't work. So what that means is, for this year with distance learning, well, we changed the schedule. So, you know, if you remember in the spring, those of you that were parents and like with us in the spring and not in middle school, classes were only like, there was only one meeting with the teacher per week, and there wasn't necessarily an expectation that there was a Zoom or something like that. Basically, like, teachers just had to post assignments. Some teachers did Zooms and like that was happening, but that wasn't like a requirement. That is one major thing that is different this year. You know, each class meets twice a week for 90 minutes. So there's 180 minutes per week of instruction. And then there's homework and stuff like that on top of that. So, but there is the expectation that kids are in the class with the teacher for 90 minutes. Twice a week. And so that is either via Zoom or sometimes Google Hangout. It's up to the teacher. But hopefully by now the kids know what to use. And one thing that we've really pushed on our teachers is the use of Google Classroom to make it easy for the kids. You know, I don't know how much like you as parents really can access the Google Classroom just yet. But for the kids, the benefit of Google Classroom for the students is all of the links and everything that they need for that class is just in one place. So all the kid has to remember is I have to get on Google Classroom, and then, you know, I know exactly what to do for the class. And like, here's the Zoom link or the Google Hangout, and here's how I get on, and here are the materials for the class. And, you know, I was looking, and unfortunately, we're not in a position that we can require teachers to use Google Classroom. I have just heavily suggested it and heavily recommended it. And I think I'd have to redo the math, because I had a couple of teachers that I didn't think were using it, but then they emailed me this week and they're like, no, I am using it. So I think we're at like 97% of our teachers are using it, which is amazing. And so that is, I'm just really grateful for our teachers doing that. So requirements for distance learning, there is a Zoom or like some sort of visual in-person class, whether it be through Zoom. Most of the time it's through Zoom, but sometimes Google Classroom. And then, you know, within that 90 minutes though, it's not just like the teachers lecturing for 90 minutes, because that's awful for everybody. It's awful for the kids to listen to that and to have to pay attention. Because, you know, even like, I don't know if you guys and how many like meetings you've been doing through Zoom, it's hard to sit there and listen to your computer for that long of a period. I mean, it would be hard for kids to listen to a lecture in person in the classroom for 90 minutes, but doing that through Zoom, that's even more difficult. So within that 90 minutes, the teachers will do some direct instruction and like go over some stuff, or then they may put students in like breakout rooms to do group work, or they have the students working on an assignment at home, but the teacher is still on the Zoom. And so if the kid, like they have a question, they like the teacher's there. And so they can come back in. One other thing that is also different, well, last year we had office hours. That has been changed to tutorial to really kind of firm up the idea that kids can get additional help. Hopefully the teachers have all explained, you know, hey, this is how you request tutorial time with me, but I've asked the teachers today and tomorrow, because, you know, next week we're in the third week of school. Kids probably haven't needed to get extra help just yet, but as with like now next week, like I said, we're in the third week of school, they're going to start to need that additional help to make sure that the kids know how they request time for the individual teachers. A lot of teachers are using like a calendar link for appointments, so that way they know, because otherwise the teacher's just like sitting on a Zoom, you know, an open Zoom, and they don't know who's coming in. And then you may have like 5 kids come in at once, but they have 5 different questions. And so you need to make the kid sit in the waiting room. And then that's kind of a waste of time. So that's the idea of the appointments, to kind of be really efficient with everybody's time. So a kid, that way, if they need 15 minutes with their English teacher, they can get that at like 2:30, but then at 3 o'clock, they can go get 15 minutes with their math teacher. And they're not sitting in like one teacher's waiting room, just like wasting time. So that's really the idea. I've also asked the teachers to communicate their tutorial procedures and how to request that time to the parents. So hopefully you guys know as parents how to request time. And the idea with the tutorial is a kid can request extra help, but also the teacher can request the kid to come in and say like, oh, you know what? I saw that you didn't really do great on that test, or your internet wasn't working yesterday, and so I'm going to have you come in, I'm going to get you caught up. And so that's really the idea. So it is a kind of a two-way street. Kid, or even you as a parent, can request time, but then also the teacher can request time too. And the teacher can also, it doesn't necessarily have to be one-on-one. They can use the time, teachers can use that time, like say in an English class, they have a group of like 10 students that like aren't really getting how to use evidence effectively in their essays, for example. And so they can bring those 10 kids in together, and they could be like in different periods, but like these 10 kids are like, you know, missing the same skill, and bring them in for a small group instruction and give them a little extra help. So that's the idea behind it. So hopefully that answers that question about how distance learning will be different this year. That is, you know, the guidance teacher, like having the 90-minute, you know, in person, like that is the class period, and like kids are logging on and you're interacting with them, that is an expectation. Like that's a non-negotiable, like that is the expectation. It's just like if you were in class, like, you know, this is the class period and you're in there with the students. So that absolutely needs to be happening. Let me just put a little caveat, you know, there is some flexibility, especially right now. Like I've got teachers that are evacuating, and like, I'm like, hey, if you don't have internet, just post some assignments, and like, we have to be really flexible right now, because this is a really, really crazy time. So there are expectations, but we're also being very, very flexible within that, so that we can support our teachers and our students and our families and everybody. So I see a question, when will the school open the tennis court for the team to go practice? My kid told me the track is already open for cross-country team practice. So right now, it's not practice, it's conditioning. And so I will have to, actually later today, I'm meeting with the athletic directors, and I will ask them what's going on with tennis. I'm writing myself a note, and see if they've been conditioning, and what is the deal with that. So the conditioning time, it's really up to the coach and like getting that organized. Our tennis courts are open. Teams are allowed to condition. The requirements right now are that it has to be outside. So we can't have like basketball and volleyball, they actually can't be inside the gym. They have to be outside, because it is supposed to be just like, you know, conditioning type stuff. There isn't supposed to be actual like practice and contact, so no contact type sports. They have to stay 6 feet away. You know, they have to maintain social distancing. A very large team needs to break up into cohorts, the cohorts of 15 with one coach. So a very large team like football probably has like 3 different cohorts, 3 or 4 different cohorts that, you know, you don't have the whole team together. And Andrew did say, like, right now, because of the smoke, actually, all of that has been canceled for right now because it's not healthy. And actually, I also just emailed the PE teachers this morning with the distance learning, like if they're having kids go outside to do exercise, they can't do that right now. So to have kids like be inside for what they're doing in their PE class. So hopefully that answered that. May the teachers set a parent's email as a guardian account so we'll be able to access notifications from the Google Classroom? Let me talk to, Andrew, you've used Google Classroom. Is that possible?
I guess it's possible, but then I think the parents are like getting assignments at that point as well. Like you pretty much set up the emails for people who are in the class. We'll have to look at a different thing. What we can encourage, if nothing else, is we can encourage our teachers to make a daily email that goes out to parents of a class, like, hey, this is the assignment, this is when it's going to be due. check with your students. I think we could do something like that.
Yeah, well, and also keep in mind that even if teachers are using Google Classroom, they all are using Google Classroom because it is just like a nice place, especially with distance learning, because like the links are all there and everything that a student needs to access. It's just really nice for the student. Google Classroom does talk to School Loop. So teachers are still using School Loop for grades and for posting assignments. And so, you know, as a parent, you can still be going into School Loop and seeing like what's happening, especially with the grades and like any sort of missing assignments. So, you know, that is still available. But I will, you know, and unfortunately, Google Classroom came around after I stopped teaching, so I'm not as familiar with the ins and outs of it, but I will talk to my professional development committee that are Google Classroom experts and ask them about that. So to confirm, the tennis court is open now? Yes. So, you know, as a school, we have to, you know, follow the park rules. Like, you know, we're considered, actually we're a school, but then we're also a community park. And so in the spring, everything was shut down, parks were shut down, and we had to like seal off everything and like keep everybody off the track and all that stuff. And actually in the spring, our tennis courts were still being worked on. They are done. So the construction of the tennis courts is done. You know, we are, so I believe the tennis courts are open. Isn't that right, Andrew? They're not locked.
I'm pretty sure they've actually been locked this whole time. It's something we can unlock, but again, with the concerns that we have right now with the weather, the smoke and everything, I think what we should do is push that to next week, kind of reevaluate, and we can open them up next week.
Yeah. So, yeah, so we'll, I think they've just kind of been default on locked because of the construction. So.
That's correct. And honestly, there's no real easy way to get to those tennis courts right now, because you'd have to go through the track entrance and then all the way across the school that way. Don't want to totally discourage you for the person that's asking, but that's the situation right now. That's the only open gate that we have is to get to the track, because we sort of feel like that's the community space that we're trying to share with everybody.
Okay. And I'm seeing that somebody is saying like some teachers are already like sending Google Classroom notifications to parents. So I will, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find out exactly how a teacher has to set that up, so I can tell teachers that are new to Google Classroom how they have to set that up so that you as a parent can get those notifications. Is the grading system the same as last semester? Well, it depends on what part of last semester you're talking about. If you're talking about January through March 12th, then yes, it is. You know, March 13th through the end of May, no, it's not. So when we went to distance learning in starting on March 16th last year, we had the March 13th grade floor, if you would remember, which meant that students' grades could not drop below where they were on March 13th. That is not where we are right now. So it is a normal like grading time, just like we would be in a normal school year. There is no grade floor. Like we started fresh last week, so there is nothing to be as a grade floor. So grades are, you know, just like we were in like normal school. You know, students have to do their assignments. You know, you as parents by now, you should have seen a syllabus, or sometimes teachers call them a green sheet. That's an East Side term because they used to always be copied on green paper, the syllabuses. So sometimes they're called the green sheet, even though they probably aren't green anymore. So you should be able to see like how the grades are going to be put together for that class. You know, if you haven't seen that yet, sometimes, you know, kids aren't great about sharing it with a parent. Check, you know, with the teacher and see That's something that usually, like if you look on School Loop and you look on the teacher's site on School Loop, like if you click on a teacher's name in School Loop, it will take you straight to the School Loop site. That is often something they post on their School Loop site. And so definitely check that. So grades are going to be like they are like normal. You know, kids are going to have to turn in assignments, you know, and I think teachers are being a little creative, like in terms of tests and doing more project-based learning type things and types of assessments, because obviously taking a traditional test via distance learning is a little bit more difficult, though there are sites and things like that that allow teachers to do that. But yes, it is normal grading. If my kid is having problems with internet and cannot join Zoom calls, what does he have to do first? So I would say, as long as like your internet is not completely out, where, you know, you can't even send an email, you know, if your internet's completely out, obviously wait till the internet comes back on and then notify the teacher. If, you know, sometimes it's, you know, you can send an email, but like, you know, the Zoom's not loading or something like that because it's taking more bandwidth, just email the teacher, let them know what's going on. If this is a continual problem that you're having, that you're finding that you just like your internet connection is not great at home, and you know it's just constantly becoming a problem, you should email Andrew Campbell right there, and he will help arrange space on campus for the student to come. Now, realize that what we're talking about with space on campus, meaning like we'll set them up in the library, they can use our Wi-Fi, we'll keep them, you know, far away from other students. And so what we're doing on school is kind of supervising the social distancing and making sure that like they're not, you know, near other students and they're keeping, you know, safely apart, but we're not giving any sort of instruction. It's definitely just supervision. But students can come and use our Wi-Fi if this is a continual problem that you're finding that you're having. But you just have to let Mr. Campbell know, and so that we can arrange that. Is emotional support being offered? Yes, absolutely. You know, like Mr. Campbell said in the chat, our two student advisors, Ms. Kunkel, who became our student advisor January of last year. It was like second semester of last year. She used to be a counselor here and then she became a student advisor. And then Mr. Sellers, who used to be our student advisor, he retired in May. And so Jeff Dasher is our new student advisor. Both those two people are available for you guys as a resource to connect with and, you know, see like, okay, I've got this problem going on and they can help. And then of course we have our social worker, Ms. Gunter, and she absolutely is available to, you know, help out. If you look on our website, you can see there's a link on there to do a referral to the Pirates Success or Support Center. And so you can send her a referral. You can shoot her an email. You can do anything. She actually is going to be with me next week when we do the Zoom with the principal. Ms. Gunter will be with me next week. So if you guys have not had a chance to meet her, she's amazing and you will get to meet her next week. So unfortunately she had a meeting today, so she couldn't be with us today. But yes, absolutely, we do have emotional support. And I know that that's just, especially right now, like, you know, this is something that is really, really important. So the question about absences, and I just want to, you know, reiterate, like if they're like, what's really, really important is for the kid to reach out to the teacher. If they missed a class, like have them email the teacher and be like, hey, this is what I mean, you know, this is why I missed, this is what was happening. And so that the teacher knows, because we're really taking attendance. For us as a school, attendance has a different focus. We are looking at has there been contact or no contact? And so an email counts as contact. And so when we really get concerned is that, you know, there was no, the kid didn't show up for the Zoom, there's no email, we don't know where the kid is, because then we're going to have Mr. Rosales, who's our parent community involvement specialist, our advisors, Ms. Kunkel and Dr. Dasher, are going to be contacting and reaching out and making sure that that kid's okay and do they have what they need. So if you have a couple of absences already, I would just contact the school and find out, you know, so you're still, like, kids are still going to be marked absent. Like if they weren't in the Zoom, because that's where the teachers are taking attendance, is like, were they there? So we're still marking kids absent. It's just, you know, what happens after that. And so if you send an email, like your internet went out, you know, you couldn't come on, and then the kid after the fact sends email, say, hey, this is what happens. The teacher is going and then correcting the attendance. It may just take a little bit of time. So just let us know what's going on. Andrew, do you have anything to add about that?
No, that all sounds right. Like you said, we can probably still see some absences that are created because students aren't in the Zoom meetings. But again, make sure that the kids are reaching out to the teachers if they are having to miss those things. We also had that question in the chat, like, yeah, if you know ahead of time that your student won't be able to attend, use our normal reporting systems. Call in and create an absence. The text line is still open too. So you use those systems still that are in place. We're still going through those things.
Yeah, what I would say is you as a parent, if there's an absence, should contact the school. My recommendation is the student contacts his teachers and says, hey, I was absent and this is what happened, because we really want to teach self-advocacy for our students. And so it's really important for the student to reach out to the teachers. Hey, what I missed? Can I schedule a tutorial time to get caught up, and that sort of thing. You as the parent, you notify us as school about the absence, and then have your child notify the teachers and like reach out to the teachers. So the question, are the IEP students still going to have services? Yes, absolutely. I actually at 10:15, as soon as we get off this meeting, I have an IEP meeting to jump onto. IEP meetings will be held via Zoom. And so case managers will be reaching out to you if you have if your child has special ed services. You know, if you have questions about particular services, please reach out to your case manager and ask them about those particular services. You know, because there is a wide range of services and stuff that's offered. And so I don't want to give a blanket answer because it is very individualized. What about if a student needs to drop off early for an appointment? We notify the teacher in advance, but should we also let the office know? No, you were in class. Honestly, that sort of thing is fine. If you're having appointments, you're going to miss the following class. Like, you know, you are just going to miss like the tail end of second period, but then you don't think you're going to make it back for a fourth period. That is probably something that you should let the office know. But if you just need to cut out a little bit early, you know, as long as you told the teacher, that's fine. The text line that we mentioned, if you look on our website, the phone number is listed. Basically, it's a Google phone number that you can send a text to, because sometimes I get that that's way more convenient. So you can text that absence to the office rather than calling. It's just a little to make it a little bit more convenient for you. Ooh, so Amy, ooh, I am going to, hold on. I'm going to put my email address in the chat. Amy, your question, that's a very individual thing. Why don't you shoot me an email about what teacher that is, and let me know, and I can see what I can do, because yeah, that doesn't seem like a good practice, and that's probably not what should be happening. And so I will talk to that teacher and get that settled, because yeah, that does seem like a giant waste of time. So we'll get that figured out. So that actually leads me to one thing I wanted to make sure to talk to parents about. Definitely the three of us, you know, we are here to support you. And if you're having problems, absolutely come to us. I always recommend, though, that if you have a question about a teacher or you have a question about a class, that you reach out to the teacher first and see what's happening. And because a lot of times stuff can be fixed and just solved that way. That, you know, you don't need us to act as the middleman. If you're finding, though, that you're not getting any traction or your problem hasn't been solved, then come to us. But we always recommend that students and parents go to the teacher first. And actually, we really recommend the student handle it first in talking to the teacher. That's a really, you know, again, that's part of that self-efficacy and teaching them how to, you know, speak up for themselves and find out, you know, and like say, this is what I'm struggling with. Especially now that we have that tutorial time where they don't necessarily have to say it in front of the whole class. They can request time to work one-on-one with the teacher and get that help. That's a really great thing for kids that maybe were reluctant to like raise their hand and ask their question in front of the whole class. And actually just the features in Zoom where they can send a private chat to a teacher and like be like, I didn't get that, you know, and that sort of thing, and what questions they have. That's really a great thing for students to start speaking up for themselves. But I know that that's sometimes hard to teach your kids to do. And so this is me telling you like, hey, this is how I handle it as a parent. I like literally like, and actually I still do it for my daughter. I'll be like, hey, email your counselor about this or email your teacher about this. And so she'll write out the email and then she hands it to me and be like, okay, how does this look? And then I look it over and I'm like, all right, that sounds good. Or like, I'm like, yeah, you weren't really clear here. Why don't you add this? And so I help her with it. But she sends it. And so I think that that's actually a really good practice for parents to start doing with their high school age kids, especially if you have freshmen where you were probably a lot more heavily involved in middle school. And when you get to high school, you know, that freshman year is a really big transition year. You definitely don't want to be hands off and be like, no, it's all you. You still want to support them, but you want to start pushing them a little bit more to take some ownership, but you're still backing them up and helping them out. So again, helping them write that email or like checking, you know, and looking and be like, okay, that's good. And then, you know, following up, did you hear from the teacher? Or did you, you know, I think that that's really.
Sonia Basco.
Join the meeting.
So the question about, I believe all students should have received a meal card, but my student didn't receive one. How should I request one? You know what? I need to find out about that because the food services people, you know, they sent out the saying like, oh yeah, everybody's going to send a meal card. But then I don't think anybody's gotten one. So I'm going to follow up about that and talk to the district about what's going on with that, because that didn't come from us as a school, that was coming from the district. So I'm not quite sure what the deal was. It may be that that was their plan and they just didn't have it ready. But I'm going to find out. I'm going to write myself another note about that. Any more questions? Did we cover everything? We put our email addresses on there, and thank you to the parent that put the attendance text line for everybody to have. That's very helpful. So like I mentioned before, next week, Ms. Gunter is going to be with me. And what we're going to be talking about next week is we're really going to be talking about problems that, you know, because she also is the parent of teenagers, problems that we're experiencing in our own homes with distance learning, and hopefully giving some tips to parents on how, as a parent, to handle distance learning better. And, you know, we'll be taking your questions about stuff that you are, you know, coming across and finding and struggling with. So, you know, because definitely it's not all smooth sailing. You know, yesterday my son had his middle school orientation, and I keep being a big proponent of like, you should have your camera on so your teacher can see you. And he was like, I am not turning my camera on and you can't make me. And so I totally get, you know, can have the best of intentions and it doesn't necessarily work out the way that we want it to. So that's what we'll be talking about next week. Any other last minute questions? No? Okay. Well, I really appreciate all of you joining us this morning. Like I said, I know that it's really hard with everything that's going on. And, you know, I do appreciate you guys taking this time and joining us. We'll do this every Thursday morning. It's actually the same exact Zoom link every Thursday morning, but what I'll do is I'll still put it in my Sunday email so that you have it so you don't have to keep track of it, but it is going to be the same exact Zoom link every Thursday morning. And so, you know, we'll have different topics and, you know, hopefully this is something that you find to be valuable. I will be recording these, which is actually, you know, kind of one of the silver linings about our current reality. You know, normally, you know, we had these times with parents in the morning and like you could make it or you couldn't make it, but there wasn't a way to like get it later because we obviously didn't record a live meeting. But now with this being via Zoom, it's not as personable. You don't get to have the side conversations with other parents, but we are able to video these and share them out. So if there's ever a time that you can't join us, we will still do it and we'll video it and then you can see what we talked about later. And so I'm hoping that parents find that to be helpful. So, you know, if you, I'm assuming all of you guys are probably already registered for School Loop and that you are getting my weekly emails. But please, you know, talk to your friends, if other parents that you have, and just, you know, ask them and make sure that they are registered for School Loop, and not just the kid, because if only the student is registered for School Loop, then the parent doesn't get the emails. The parent needs to be registered too, because I send my parent email to parents. Though this year I have started sending an email to students also. I started doing that in the spring when we went to distance learning, and it seemed to actually be really good to have that connection with the kids, except now the kids email me about everything. And I'm like, oh, email your teacher. You don't have to just email me. But that's fine. But thank you guys for your time. And hopefully I see you next week. All right. Thank you. I appreciate all of you. All right, I'm going to end the meeting. Bye, guys.
Bye.